These are 7 dairy products that 87% of American households keep in their kitchens. Products that generations of us were told were healthy, essential, and doctor recommended. And yet every single one carries documented health risks that most people have never been told about. This video is not about scaring you. It is not about clearing out your refrigerator. It is about showing you what the science actually says, why it stayed buried for so long, and what you can safely eat or drink instead. Here is something worth knowing before we get into the products. Harvard University's School of Public Health recommends that adults limit dairy to 1 to 2 servings a day, where 1 serving is a cup of milk, a cup of yogurt, or an ounce and a half of cheese. The US government recommends 3. That gap is not an accident. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly where it came from, who benefits from it, and what it has cost the health of millions of Americans. Your beliefs about dairy did not form on their own. The U.S. Department of Agriculture carries 2 responsibilities: setting the nation's dietary guidelines and promoting U.S. agricultural products, dairy included. Those 2 missions pull in opposite directions, and that tension has shaped what Americans eat for generations. Here is how deep the money runs. Every time a dairy farmer sells milk, they are required by law to pay 15 cents per 100 pounds. That generates roughly $400 million every single year, while dairy accounts for 47% of all commodity checkoff revenues in the country. That money flows to Dairy Management Inc., which has bankrolled partnerships with McDonald's, Domino's Pizza, and NFL teams. The CEO of that organization averaged over $960,000 in annual compensation between 2010 and 2018. Got Milk came out of this system. It was part of a $200 million campaign that at its most aggressive claimed drinking milk helped people lose weight. Harvard's Dr. Walter Willett called that claim totally discredited by research not funded by the National Dairy Council. The USDA was eventually forced to reprimand the dairy industry over it in 2007. On the government's own My Plate food guide, Willett put it plainly: My Plate mixes science with the influence of powerful agricultural interests, which is not the recipe for healthy eating. That is the machinery running in the background. Now let's look at what it has been protecting. Most Americans were never told this. The conventional milk in their glass comes from a Holstein Friesian cow that's milked approximately 300 days a year, including throughout most of her pregnancy. Estrogen levels in milk from a late pregnant cow run 33 times higher than in milk from a non-pregnant cow. Because of this, dairy accounts for 60 to 70% of all dietary estrogen intake in humans, according to researcher Ganma Davasambu. Estrogen and related hormones circulating at elevated levels over decades are tied directly to hormone-sensitive cancers. Men consuming 3 or more daily dairy servings face a 141% higher prostate cancer death risk compared to men consuming less than 1. Harvard has described milk as one of the most consistent dietary predictors for prostate cancer in the research literature. For women, the highest consumers of American cheese, cheddar and cream cheese, showed a 53% higher breast cancer risk in one NCI-funded study. Then there is RBGH. The FDA approved recombinant bovine growth hormone in November 1993, manufactured by Monsanto under the brand name Posilac. It was designed to boost a cow's milk output by 10 to 17%. It also raises IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, in the resulting milk. IGF-1 survives pasteurization. It is biologically active in the human body. Adults who drink conventional milk carry approximately 10% higher IGF-1 blood levels than non-milk drinkers. Elevated IGF-1 has been connected to increased risks of prostate cancer, premenopausal breast cancer, and colorectal cancer. The European Union permanently banned RBGH on the 1st of January in the year 2000. Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and Argentina all refused to approve it, while the United States still permits it with no labeling requirement. When Oakhurst Dairy in Maine tried to put no artificial growth hormones on its label in 2003, Monsanto sued them. The case settled on the 24th of December, 2003. There is also the A1 protein issue. About 30% of cow's milk protein is beta-casein. Most American milk comes from Holstein Friesian cows producing the A1 variant. Digesting it produces a compound called BCM7, a peptide that slows gut motility, compromises the intestinal barrier, and disrupts gut flora. A 2016 clinical crossover trial in the Nutrition Journal found that 45 subjects experienced significantly more gastrointestinal symptoms and higher inflammatory biomarkers from A1 milk than from A2 milk. One more thing, the 2014 British Medical Journal study tracking over 61,000 Swedish women found that those drinking 3 or more glasses of milk daily faced a 93% higher mortality risk and higher fracture rates. The evidence is genuinely contested, though. A 2018 follow-up from the Nurses' Health Study, following more than 80,000 women for 32 years, found that each daily milk serving was associated with an 8% lower hip fracture risk. The data points in both directions, and that honest uncertainty is worth sitting with. The cleaner alternatives are A2 milk, which eliminates BCM7 entirely, organic soy milk with 7 to 8 grams of protein per cup, and Ripple pea milk at 8 grams of protein and 440 milligrams of calcium per serving. Ice cream is tied to memories for a lot of people. Summer evenings, family gatherings, and the good old days. But the numbers inside that container deserve a look. A 3/4 cup serving of Ben & Jerry's vanilla delivers 14 grams of saturated fat. That is 70% of the daily recommended maximum in one bowl. Häagen-Dazs vanilla comes in at 13 grams for the same serving. While the American Heart Association caps saturated fat at 13 grams total per day, finish a full cup of either brand and you are already over the limit. But the saturated fat is not the most concerning part. That belongs to the emulsifiers. A 2015 study in Nature by Georgia State University researchers found that low concentrations of these emulsifiers induced low-grade chronic inflammation and metabolic syndrome in mice. The gut bacteria physically migrated toward the gut wall, the protective mucus layer degraded, and gut flora shifted in a harmful direction. A 2017 follow-up confirmed the same emulsifiers altered the human microbiota directly. There is also a labeling issue. FDA rules require at least 10% milk fat to call something ice cream. In 2013, Unilever reformulated roughly 40% of Breyer's products, replacing butterfat with corn syrup, polydextrose, glycerin, and emulsifiers, then relabeled them frozen dairy dessert in small print. A class action lawsuit followed over the misleading natural claims. Good alternatives exist. Fruit-based sorbets, banana ice cream, and low-sugar coconut milk frozen desserts are all solid options. If you prefer dairy ice cream, look for brands with no more than 4 grams of saturated fat and 16 grams of added sugar per serving. Breyer's natural vanilla sits considerably below the Ben & Jerry's and Häagen-Dazs benchmarks. If you use Coffee Mate or International Delight every morning, flip the bottle over. On Coffee Mate Original, ingredient number 1 is corn syrup solids. Ingredient number 2 is hydrogenated vegetable oil. The FDA banned partially hydrogenated oils with a final compliance deadline on the 1st of January 2020. Before that ban, trans fats were estimated to cause up to 250,000 heart attacks and 50,000 deaths per year in the United States. The first deception is a loophole. Any product with less than half a gram of trans fat per serving can list 0 grams. Coffee Mate's serving size is 1 tablespoon. Pour 2, 3, or 4 tablespoons into a large mug and you are accumulating trans fat while the label reads 0. A 2018 class action lawsuit against Nestle raised exactly this, and the court declined to dismiss it in 2020. In 2023, FDA testing found that up to 84% of products declaring no partially hydrogenated oils actually tested positive for them. While Coffee Mate is banned in European countries like Denmark, Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, Austria, and Hungary because of its trans fat content, the second deception is the word non-dairy. Nearly all Coffee Mate products contain sodium caseinate, a milk protein derivative that makes them unsuitable for people with dairy allergies or those following a vegan diet. The milk protein is there, regardless of what the label says. Then there is carrageenan, present in both Coffee Mate liquid formulas and International Delight. Dr. Joanne Tobacman of the University of Illinois documented in a 2001 Environmental Health Perspectives review that food-grade carrageenan activates the NF-κB inflammatory pathway. Lab mice exposed to it for 18 days developed profound glucose intolerance. Daily human consumption has climbed from roughly 100 milligrams per day in the 1970s to approximately 250 milligrams today. In November 2016, the National Organic Standards Board voted 10-3 to remove carrageenan from organic foods. The USDA reversed that decision. Both products also contain dipotassium phosphate, an inorganic phosphate additive that absorbs at nearly 100% compared to 40-60% for naturally occurring phosphorus in food. More on why that matters in the next section. The simple swap is oat milk, a small amount of real half and half, or plain coconut cream. Plain yogurt with live cultures earns its good reputation. The flavored versions most people actually buy are a different product wearing the same name. A 6-ounce Yoplait Original Strawberry carries 13 to 14 grams of added sugar. That is 56% of the American Heart Association's entire daily added sugar limit for women in one container. Greek God's Honey Greek Yogurt lands at roughly 25 grams of total sugar per 8-ounce serving. The HA's full daily allowance for women is 25 grams. 1 cup. Entire day's limit. Gone. So people reach for the light versions? Denon Light and Fitz uses sucralose and acesulfame potassium. Some Yoplait Light products contain aspartame, and this is where things get more complicated, not less. A 2014 Nature study from the Weizmann Institute found that saccharin, sucralose, and aspartame drove glucose intolerance through gut microbiota changes. The effects were transferable between subjects via fecal transplant, confirming the mechanism was microbial. A follow-up randomized controlled trial in Cell in 2022, with 120 healthy adults, confirmed that saccharin and sucralose significantly impaired glycemic responses in real subjects. In May 2023, the WHO recommended against non-sugar sweeteners for weight control. Francesco Branca stated that replacing free sugars with non-sugar sweeteners does not help with weight control in the long term. 2 months later, the IARC classified aspartame as a Group 2B carcinogen, citing limited evidence of a connection to liver cancer. In March 2024, the FDA issued its first-ever qualified health claim linking yogurt to reduce type 2 diabetes risk, based on a Danone North America petition. The claim applies regardless of sugar content, meaning it technically covers high-sugar products like Yoplait Original and Dannon fruit on the bottom. The straightforward swap is plain Greek yogurt with fresh fruit. Double the protein, 0 added sugar, genuine live cultures. Siggi's, for those who prefer something pre-flavored, keeps added sugar below 5 grams per serving. What exactly is a Kraft single? It is not cheese, and it is not legally permitted to call itself cheese. After a 2002 FDA warning letter over the use of milk protein concentrate, Kraft changed its label from pasteurized processed cheese food to pasteurized prepared cheese product. That designation has no FDA standard of identity. It exists for products with enough additives and fillers to disqualify from the legal definition of real cheese. Velveeta carries the exact same label. The sodium adds up fast. A single 21-gram Kraft single delivers 200 to 230 milligrams of sodium. 2 slices pushes that to 400 to 460 milligrams, which is 31% of the AHA's ideal daily sodium ceiling. Nearly 47% of American adults live with hypertension. But the sodium is not the biggest concern. The phosphate additives are. Kraft singles contain both calcium phosphate and sodium phosphate. These inorganic additives absorb into the bloodstream at nearly 100%. Compare that to 40 to 60% for phosphorus that occurs naturally in real aged cheese. A 2012 study in Deutsches Arzteblatt International found that elevated serum phosphate predicts mortality and chronic kidney disease, and that even high normal phosphate levels predicted cardiovascular events in people with healthy kidneys. The mechanism is called osteogenic transdifferentiation. Excess phosphate causes smooth muscle cells and blood vessel walls to reprogram into bone-like cells, calcifying the vessels from the inside. This is not passive buildup, it is an active cellular process. Roughly 37 million American adults have chronic kidney disease. Kidney filtration declines naturally with age, meaning many people carry reduced kidney reserve without ever receiving a diagnosis. The National Kidney Foundation advises anyone managing kidney health to look for the letters PHOS in any ingredient. Kraft singles list 2 of them. Real aged cheddar, Parmesan, or Gouda contains no phosphate additives and is legally permitted to use the word cheese. Nutritional yeast is the dairy-free option. In the 1960s, the American Heart Association told Americans to replace butter with margarine. It turned out to be wrong. Margarine relied on partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, which created artificial trans fats. In 1990, Mensink and Catan showed that trans fats raised LDL and pulled HDL down simultaneously, making them worse for the heart than the butter they replaced. Harvard's Nurses' Health Study confirmed that coronary heart disease risk roughly doubled for every 2% increase in trans fat calories. Before the FDA acted, trans fats were estimated to cause up to 250,000 heart attacks and 50,000 deaths annually. The final ban came through in June 2015, with full compliance required by January 2020. But the replacement story is one most people have never heard. When manufacturers pulled partially hydrogenated oils, most turn to intraesterified fats. Intraesterification rearranges fatty acids without producing trans fats, so it attracts no regulatory scrutiny. A 2007 study in nutrition and metabolism found it matched trans fats' damage to LDL and HDL, and also raised fasting blood glucose by approximately 20%, something trans fat had not done. A 2024 study in Scientific Reports documented intraesterified palm oil causing adipose tissue inflammation, hepatic fat accumulation, and insulin resistance in mice. None of this shows up on a label. Intraesterified fats can list as vegetable oils, fully hydrogenated oils, or palm oil, with no distinction for the consumer. The American Heart Association now recommends replacing both butter and margarine with liquid non-tropical vegetable oils. Extra virgin olive oil is the easiest, most researched choice. Premier Protein, Ensure Boost High Protein, and Muscle Milk Zero are marketed to health-conscious adults with promises of muscle support and healthy aging. The regulatory oversight is almost non-existent. In 1994, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act placed supplements in the same category as food, requiring no pre-market approval. Since then, the market grew from roughly 4,000 products to more than 100,000. 28% of supplement manufacturers fail to register with the FDA at all. The contamination data is hard to ignore. In January 2025, the Clean Label Project tested 160 products from 70 brands. 47% exceeded California's Proposition 65 thresholds for lead, cadmium, arsenic, and mercury. Organic products came back with 3 times more lead than non-organic. Chocolate flavors ran 110 times more cadmium than vanilla. In October 2025, Consumer Reports found that more than 70% of the 23 products they tested exceeded their own lead safety threshold of 0.5 micrograms per day. Naked Nutrition's Mass Gainer. top the list at 7.7 micrograms per serving, roughly 1,570% of the concern level. There are no federal limits for heavy metals in protein supplements. Whey protein also drives up IGF-1. A meta-analysis of 8 randomized controlled trials found that 20 to 30 additional grams of whey daily elevated IGF-1 by 8 to 10%, sustained over up to 2 years. Then look at what is specifically inside these products. Premier Protein contains sucralose, acesulfame potassium, carrageenan, and phosphates. 4 of the additives already discussed in this video, all in one drink. Boost High Protein contains glucose syrup, added sugar, and carrageenan. Muscle Milk Zero contains artificial flavors, multiple sweeteners, and carrageenan. There is a real counterpoint. A 2024 JAMA Network open study of more than 8,500 adults found that higher protein intake was associated with lower mortality even in mild to moderate kidney disease. Around 46% of adults over 50 fall short of their daily protein requirements. Getting enough protein genuinely matters. The issue is not protein, it is the specific delivery system. Whole food protein from beans, lentils, tofu, tempeh, fish, eggs, nuts, and seeds sidesteps all of it. Where a supplement is genuinely needed, pea protein powder with NSF or USP third-party certification is the cleaner option. Consumer Reports January 2026 testing found Clean Simple Eats, Equate, Ritual, and Truvani all came back low for lead. These concerns compound the longer the exposure runs. Lactose maldigestion affects 46% of adults over 50, nearly double the rate in younger adults. It runs at 90 to 95% among Asian Americans, 60 to 80% among African Americans, and 50 to 80% among Hispanic Americans. Roughly 30 to 50 million Americans are lactose intolerant overall. Many are attributing their bloating and digestive discomfort to other causes. The Kraft Singles, Coffee Mate, and Yoplait in their daily routine may be the actual source. Kidney filtration declines naturally with age. Phosphate additives that absorb at nearly 100% found in Coffee Mate, Kraft Singles, Premier Protein, and Boost. Apply pressure to a system that has less margin than it once did. Blood sugar regulation also becomes less efficient over time. More than 97 million Americans are living with prediabetes. The added sugars in Yoplait, Down and Fruit on the bottom, and Ben & Jerry's, along with the corn syrup solids in Coffee Mate Original, hit a metabolic system that is less forgiving than it used to be. And IGF-1, elevated by conventional milk and the whey in Premier Protein and Boost, becomes more concerning the longer the exposure runs. Cancer risk accumulates. Decades of exposure cannot be subtracted. Here is the practical list. One product at a time. Replace conventional milk with A2 milk, organic soy milk, or Ripple pea milk. Replace Ben & Jerry's and Häagen-Dazs with fruit sorbet, banana ice cream, or dairy ice cream with under 4 grams of saturated fat and 16 grams of added sugar per serving. Breyer's Natural Vanilla is a better option than the premium brands. Replace Coffee Mate Original and International Delight with oat milk, a small amount of real half and half, or plain coconut cream. Replace Yoplait Original and Dan and Fruit on the bottom with plain Greek yogurt and fresh fruit. For something pre-flavored, Siggy stays under 5 grams of added sugar per serving. Replace Kraft Singles and Velveeta with real aged cheddar, Parmesan, or Gouda. Or use nutritional yeast for a dairy-free option. Replace stick margarine with extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil. Replace Premier Protein, Boost, and Muscle Milk with whole food protein sources. If you supplement, choose a pea protein powder with NSF or USP third-party certification. At the beginning of this video, there was a gap worth naming. Harvard recommends 1 to 2 daily dairy servings. The US government recommends 3. That gap came from $400 million a year in mandatory checkoff funds, a structural conflict built into the USDA itself, a $200 million campaign that made false weight loss claims, and decades of dietary guidance shaped by the industry it was supposed to evaluate independently. None of the 7 products covered here are illegal. None of them will cause a crisis in a single serving. The damage runs through accumulation. 30 years of corn syrup solids in a morning cup of Coffee Mate. Kraft Singles at lunch. Yoplait Original consuming an entire day's sugar allowance before 9 a.m. Breyer's frozen dairy dessert with gut-disrupting emulsifiers. Premier Protein shakes delivering lead and carrageenan in the same bottle that promises healthy aging. Accumulation is harder to see than a warning label, and that invisibility is exactly what has made it so effective for so long. Marion Nestle, the nutrition professor at NYU who spent decades tracing the food industry's influence on public health, put it plainly. It apparently never occurred to anybody that food companies are businesses with stockholders to please, and that their entire purpose is to sell more product, not less. You know what has been sold, you know what it contains, and you know what to reach for instead. Make different choices. Your body will register the difference.